Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood night. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, April 25th. LA Galaxy get a rowdy 1-0 win over visiting Nashville SC. First time those two teams ever met. We're going to talk about that game. There was a lot going on in that game. A lot of tactics being played out. A lot of technical things that happened in that. Greg Vanney bringing in Dejan Joveljic. We're going to talk about Joveljic. The shouts for him getting minutes continue to get louder. Kevin Cabral's time on the field ends with some boos. We're going to talk about all of that coming up on the show. A little bit on the U.S. Open Cup and tickets and all that entails that coming up too. Some odds and ends in there as well. Some stats, all sorts of fun stuff to get to and to talk about. And to help me do all that, he's back. It's Kevin the Panda Baxter. Kev, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, in that intro, it says that this is the show where you talk to reporters and MLS insiders. Which one am I?
MLS experts. MLS experts,
oh, okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then I've got to be the other one because I'm not an expert in anything.
I haven't figured out what you are yet either, so don't worry. We'll figure it out eventually, however many years this has been going on.
Last week you said, don't sleep on the defense.
Uh-huh.
Remember? And that's true. Okay, so we got another week, another Galaxy clean sheet, another goal, one of them, one whole goal. So yep. I'm not going to sleep on the defense. But man, the offense is making me really drowsy. You're going to see me yawn a lot in this show just thinking about the offense.
I'm going to say something.
You go ahead.
The LA Galaxy's offense has been the only thing keeping it afloat for years now, right? It was scoring goals. It was get goals in because you're going to give goals up. And everybody wasn't happy with that excitement. So you made your bed, now lie in it. The LA Galaxy defense is going to continue this path, maybe not as good as they're doing, because I think maybe they're outperforming a little bit about what we expect. But in terms of what they're doing right now, enjoy the fact that the defense is only making the offense score one goal. That's all you need. And don't forget who you played the last couple of games against, because Chicago and Nashville are two of the most parky-bussy teams in the league.
Yeah, but 10 goals in 8 games. Do you know who the number 2 scorer on the Galaxy is? It's that Portland defender who had an own goal. He's tied for second in goals, the Galaxy. Chicharitos 5. There's 5 other people, including a guy who's not even on the team,
right,
who have 1 goal each. They have 10 goals in 8 games. And remember, we don't know what Costa's making yet, but we do know what Chicharitos is making, $6 million. We do know that Cabral's around $2 million. So they're spending probably $10 to $11 million, over half their payroll, on attacking players, and they have 10 goals in 8 games. I don't think they're getting what they paid for. Maybe with Chicharito.
You think a guy who scored 17 goals in 21 games last year and has scored 5 goals in 8 games so far, you think maybe they're getting the money out of that? Jesus. Are already into the ridiculous statements that are coming out of you? It's what? How many minutes into the show are we? We're 5 minutes in. One. You're sick and tired. You're sick and tired of all this winning. All this winning the Galaxy are doing. Oh God, it's so annoying. These 1-0 wins. Oh God. I liked it better when it was 7-6 and the Galaxy lost. It's incomprehensible how quickly this fan base, and quite honestly, neutrals who are watching this team, want to just turn on it.
I'm
you know what?
It's just that
I'm done with this team. No, come on.
The perky and perpetually positive Nikki K last week called me a negative Nancy.
So you're leaning into that?
I'm coming into off the front foot. That's right.
I understand. No, I think if you look at this, and we'll get to the stats, and maybe I'll just jump to that one. This is the 6th best start in franchise history. It's one more point than they had last year in 2021. So we play the cautious tale that we played last year, which was, hey, the LA Galaxy started really great, Kevin, and then they did not finish so great. So do we feel, and just looking at this Nashville game as sort of, a good test, or putting the Nashville and the Chicago games together, do we feel like this Galaxy team is different than last year right now? And I'm going to say 100% yes, because they are winning games in a much different way, more comprehensive way. I will say this. I have not felt this comfortable around the Galaxy's defense in a very long time, but that most of the game against Nashville, I was like, I don't know why Nashville's trying to score. The Galaxy aren't going to let them. Like, you could just sort of sit. It's like, you can try to counter all you want. Galaxy are going to cover it. And to their credit, in this game, the Galaxy covered transitions, and that's a buzzword for Greg, right? Transitions. They covered the transitions perfectly. They did it better than they have in any other game. And guys like Derek Williams, who made the team of the week, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Derek Williams, who made the team of the week, and Sega Coulibaly, who, if you came into the season saying that Sega Coulibaly was going to be one of the best defenders the LA Galaxy have had through 8 games, and you said that at the end of last season, they're like, don't worry, next year, the first 8 games, Sega Coulibaly is going to be awesome. Everybody would be like, okay, clearly imbibing too much tequila before the game, or after the game, or during the game. But he has been simply outstanding in everything that he's done. He's been the most consistent defender the LA Galaxy have had over 8 games. And his pairing with Derek Williams is now solidified, and that defense is pretty much well set. The biggest issue that I have with the LA Galaxy's defense is that Raheem Edwards, if he goes down, the LA Galaxy has all sorts of problems. You can put Kelvin Leerdam there, but you're certainly not going to get the same production out of what the Galaxy are doing. And to your point, Raheem Edwards is a big reason why this offense is moving so much, and he's a defender.
Well, and I mean, when Sueño comes back, it'll give them a little bit of coverage. But you're right about the defense. I looked at some stats today. Last year, they gave it 54 goals. Jonathan Bond had to stand on his head to have a chance in a number of those games that they won. And you could see, I think if you look at the number of goals they gave up late, Jonathan Bond was so active, he just simply got tired at the end of games. Last year, he was 3rd in the league in saves, and the Galaxy gave up 54 goals, not all of them Jonathan Bond. There were 4 that Klinsmann gave up. But Jonathan Bond alone faced over 5.5 shots a game when you include the goals that went in and the ones that he saved. This year, it's half that. He's facing 2.75 shots a game, exactly half. He has 4 shutouts. He had 4 shutouts all of last year. 8 games, he has 4 shutouts. He's given up 6 goals. He has played every minute, not counting U.S. Open Cup, every MLS minute Jonathan Bond has played. He's given up 6 goals, second fewest in the league. The defense is carrying this team, and it's night and day different. And I think you see a better Jonathan Bond. Why? Because when a keeper has to make 2 or 3 saves a game, I think he can do that for the most part. It's when he's making 7, 8, and 10. Remember that one game he had 15 saves?
Yes.
That's just not sustainable.
No.
A keeper cannot concentrate at that level for that long, and he gets physically exhausted as well. So the defense, you talk about Williams, Coulibaly, they're playing really well. And I know that one of the things you wanted to talk about, because I am going to make the argument that I think that Dejan Joveljic needs to play more. And I think
you tried. It was you even asked how to say his name at the beginning, and you still didn't get it right. Try again. Yes. So it's Joveljic. No. Joveljic. It's just like Ibrahimovic. Joveljic.
How about, did I do okay on Dejan?
Yes, you did. It was perfect.
Stay with that one.
Okay. All right.
We'll stay with Dejan.
Cool.
One of the things, I think Dejan can spark this offense. It's right now, the Galaxy are, I think, 2nd or 3rd in the league in shots on target, but they're 2nd to last in shooting percentage, meaning they're getting the opportunities. They're not converting them. And I know that you have some stats that show that Kevin Cabral is creating opportunities. He's not finishing. That's the problem. Yeah. You can create opportunities all you want, but if the ball doesn't go in the net, it doesn't count. And, Vanney even said that Dejan is a great finisher, that he is probably one of the better finishers on the team. Okay, well, if the problem is we're getting chances, but we're not scoring, then we need to finish, then maybe bring your best finisher onto the field. I think one reason that Greg's a little reticent to do that is Dejan is not the typical winger like Cabral and Grandsir and Costa, and that would mean he'd have to go to a 4-4-2, and Dejan would have to play up front with Chicharito. And I think that Vanney really likes Chicharito as the target striker. But again, he has 5 of the 10 goals. He has, the second guy on the team. Cabral is tied for 2nd for shots on goal with 4. Everything goes through Chicharito. And you saw, you were talking about before we started this podcast, how Walker Zimmerman and Dave Romney were just all over Chicharito. That's the only guy they fear.
Right. But then it ends up being somebody else. I mean,
but it makes it too easy for them to defend because it's not somebody else. He has 5 of their 10 goals.
Yeah, but two of the last 3 goals the LA Galaxy have scored have come from somebody not named Chicharitos. So, and granted, one of them was from a defender, which is Sega Coulibaly, right, in the LAFC game. I like how you go through all the talking points that we were supposed to spread out over a show in the first 11 minutes. I'm going to stop giving you show rundowns. That way you can't be like, let's talk about this, and then we're going to go into this. Because, I mean, we haven't really even gotten to lineups. And you want to talk about a 4-4-2, and I'm going to tell you something that might blow your mind. The LA Galaxy played in a 4-4-2 for most of this game. See, absolutely 100%.
An easy switch then.
It was an easy switch, which is why it made a lot of sense to make it.
By the way, I actually told you yesterday I thought we should play a 4-2-2-2, which you didn't like.
No, I do, because I think that's stupid. A 4-2-2-2 is the same as a 4-4-2. It's just in a different diamonds formation. You're just assigning the midfielders to a different role. People are telling me, oh, we'll put Revelison up at the top of the. Okay, then play a 4-4-2 diamond. Okay, cool. Still a 4-4-2. Just variations on a theme, boys and girls. And I'm not a Bruce Arena guy, but Greg says this all the time too, which is it's just a starting position, and very rarely do you see teams attack in the same position that they are formation that they defend in. 100% correct. And whenever the Galaxy would defend out of this particular situation, Cabral would drop back into the midfield and he would chase down, and Grand Sur was up there. Listen, there was a very important reason why the Galaxy decided to play 2 forwards up top, and this is Greg Vanney learning from what happened against Chicago. Okay, now I was talking with Scott French after the game against Nashville, and we were in the writer's room. We were getting ready to talk to some people, and it was Damian Calhoun and Scott French and myself, and we were just talking there, and Scott goes, the thing about the Chicago game was it was a much more better tactical game, and I disagree 100%, but, I'm not going to sit there and start that argument with Scott in the writer's room. This was a better tactical game, and the reason it was a better tactical game is this 4-4-2 was the correct formation playing against Nashville, who's going to play I know their formation shows 5 across the midfield, but it's not. It's 5 across the back line. Because Lovitz and Mule, they drop back into, and then you have 3 really good center backs with Dave Romney, Zimmerman, and Mayer, right? And so you have those guys on the back line. You put the 5 back there. Now they have 5, and they drop 4 in front of that. So now they have 9. They very quickly can get 11 guys behind the ball if you're Nashville. We saw the same thing, Kevin, against Colorado, right? We saw that, or not Colorado, but Chicago. Is that Chicago, low block team. Low block frustrated the LA Galaxy, weren't able to find really those moments. I would say the only difference between Chicago and Nashville takes their low block to the next level, which is making sure that even when they're pressed up into the play, that they're never actually pressed up that far. There's not a lot of room to run in behind Nashville. They do that for a reason, make the field compact. But it also means that as much as Chicago is anti-soccer with Ezra Hendrickson trying to get all those things together, just trying to survive Chicago, right? Chicago is going to be one of those teams like Nashville. Nashville, I think, set the league record for draws. Was it last year or the year before? I can't remember. It was one of those, every game they played was a draw because they're not looking to attack. They would rather take the 1 point a lot of times. This was a game they came in looking for the 1 point and perhaps highway robbery if they ever got a chance on goal, which they got 1 shot on goal the entire night. 4 total shots from Nashville as well. And I think it was Leal who had a first half shot, and that was it. Jonathan Bond made a pretty easy save. So, you were talking about saves and Jonathan Bond. They got 1 save on the night because he was only tested once. That was pretty much it. So Greg Vanney had seen the games against Chicago. He had seen the games against Orlando. Low block counterattack, right? Orlando opens up more than Nashville and Chicago does, but still low block. Seattle low blocked the heck out of the LA Galaxy whenever they played in Seattle. Low block, lobs over the top, lots of counterattacking. But again, Seattle more advanced in terms of what they're trying to do. What was the big thing that we learned in Chicago was that the Galaxy needed help on that front line in order to break through the front line and create chances. And whenever you move that close to the goal, it actually gets harder because it's more compact, right? So what did Greg Vanney do? He played a 4-4-2, which at times probably had 5 or 6 LA Galaxy players on the front line occupying their defenders along that back line. So if you look at the midfield stripe, a lot of times you would see Cabral up there, you would see Chicharito up there, you would see Grand Sur up there. You would see guys pressing up against it. Alvarez would sort of tuck in between. one of the big moves that Greg Vanney made after he brought Costa in and sort of moved Costa into the middle was he was screaming at Revelison at one point in the second half to get forward and make a run. And Revelison sort of shrugs his shoulders and takes off on a run. Like he really shrugged, Kevin, which is always like hysterical for me whenever like a coach is like, you go down there and you run. The guy's like, all right, I guess I'll go down there. So, and he just takes off in this run, occupies two players. Chicharito pulls out in between the spot. He moves over. Costa came into the space that was vacated by Revelison and Chicharito moving in another direction. And all of a sudden Costa got a shot on goal. So like there's all these little things that Greg was trying to do to occupy the number of players that they had in the back. And so against Nashville right now, in this particular situation, the 4-4-2 was the perfect formation to be played up there and how they were trying to play it, which was to occupy a lot of those defenders. It doesn't work against everybody. So, saying that Dejan coming in this is absolutely 100% correct. It was funny because Eric after the game said, Josh is going to tell me that you can't swap these guys like for like. I'm like, well, actually, Eric, you can in this formation with a 4-4-2 because Dejan came in and we have the audio from Greg. We can hear him explain it because I think it's super interesting, but he talks about Dejan playing in this half space, Kevin, a half space between a winger and sort of that forward, the position that Cabral was sort of playing, but it is more open to what Dejan does, and it keeps him out of Chicharito's way, which is one of the other things that it does. I know it's long-winded, but I've been thinking about this a lot. It made perfect sense for Dejan to come in there, and I think you're right. Dejan absolutely needs more minutes.
He's 51 this season, I think.
51 in 6 games played. So he's played in 6 games and he has 51 minutes. It's hard. I think I have as many minutes as Dejan in games because, if you stand on the sideline, you get some minutes.
And when he came in last year, remember Chicharito was hurt and he started, I think, the first 12 games or something like that. He started a lot and he performed fairly well. And I just think that the Galaxy, as you said, with this formation after the Chicago game, they changed things up a little bit. I think Dejan coming in, if he stays out of Chicharito's way and his instincts are to push into the space that Chicharito's already occupied, and that's not going to work. But if he can steer clear of Chicharito, I think they can complement one another. They just got to make sure they stay on separate sides of the field, because if they wind up in the same spot, then that defeats everything.
It does, but I mean, there's an important part to this that, yes, they absolutely lined up in a 4-4-2. And on the attacking side, which was the majority of the time for the LA Galaxy, they held a ton of possession in this game, a tremendous amount of possession in this game. I think ended up with, let's see, what did they say? Almost 68 or 67% to 33. I can tell you right now that the second half possession for the LA Galaxy reached 75%. So they had 57% possession in the first half. Galaxy held 75% possession in the second half, which if you were at this game, you felt every minute of that, because it was very clear that the LA Galaxy were dominating this game. But with that in a 4-4-2 is that in a 4-4-2, you're not usually going to see somebody drop back and play defense out of those two forwards that came back. They didn't defend in a 4-4-2, and a lot of times whenever they would come back, it would be Cabral who would come back, and he made a couple really nice runs to recover on defense and sniff out some counterattacks and do those types of things. That's something you're not going to get from Dejan. So you're going to lose that in the midfield if you're going to play him.
And that's the problem, is that we agree the defense is playing out of their mind right now. And are they playing over their heads? I don't know. I mean, they've been consistent through 8 games, so I think you got to say that they're this good. But now if you change, and we know that defending is a team game, it's not just the defenders, even the holding midfielders, it's everybody except maybe Robbie Keane. Everyone's supposed to play defense. And if you do move Dejan in and take Cabral out, you do lose a defender, because Dejan has not shown the ability or the desire, I guess, to track back to the extent that Cabral does, who's the fastest player on the field and probably one of the fastest in the league. And so he can make up for a lot of mistakes by other players just simply with his speed.
Yeah, let's get to Greg Vanney and what he said, and then I want to get back to all the geniuses that I see around Twitter and the Discord and everything else that say, if they just work on it in training, Dejan and Chicharito together, they do, and that does happen, and they are working.
Talked about that. He talked about how he loves playing with him in training, and he says we can play together.
Exactly, he can, and so they're working on it, and this is something that they're working. But also, I'm not there at training, Kevin, and you're not there at training. This is the one time where Greg has a real advantage over what happens on the field. Yeah.
And before you go any further, people saying, well, they should work on that in training, and Greg will explain this. But look, if Dejan is not the starter, you're not going to have him work with the starting guy. You're going to have the starters work together. You're not going to say, hey, let's spend a whole training session with we'll put in some second string guys to work with the starting lineup because they're never going to see the field together probably. So let's work on that. No, you're not going to do that. Until Dejan becomes a starter, he's not going to get tons of reps with Chicharito because what's the point?
There's two positions, there's two ways that I see Dejan getting more minutes, and I agree with everybody. I see it what everybody else sees, and listen, I have a very favorable view of Kevin Cabral in terms of what he's able to do, and I think he does a lot of things really well. The finishing is not part of that. As I've said before, most frustrating Galaxy player I've probably ever watched. Just 95% of everything is almost exactly the way that you want it to be with him. And that last 5%, which is why, by the way, you get the expensive 5%, right? The last 5% of a striker or a goal scorer or winger is where you make your money, right? It's scoring goals, it's putting goals in the back of the net, and he's not doing that. In this particular game, he had the highest XG. By the way, I should put this into perspective, though. None of the XG games, this game did not have a high XG rating. That both teams finished under 1. So technically speaking, XG was saying maybe nobody scored in this game. That's what XG is saying. It's maybe nobody scored in this game. And the fact that the Galaxy did score and for where Dejan scored from means that it wasn't a great look in terms of overall XG. It was a low percentage shot because it's at an extreme angle and he put it in the right spot, which again, Greg Vanney got it. He's a competitor. 100%. Here is Damien asked this great question. I thought this was really the story of the entire game. So let's hear from Greg Vanney, what he had to say about bringing in Joveljic. And he was ready to bring Joveljic in at about the 70th minute, Kevin, and then he sent him back down to the corner. He didn't bring him in right away. Greg had a reason for that, and that was sort of what Damien was asking about. So here is Greg Vanney after the game.
Yeah, I brought Dejan to put him in as a second striker, but before I wanted to go to that, I wanted to see what it looked like with Kevin as the winger, mainly because I wanted to see what Douglas looked like on the inside position before I made that switch. I wanted to see if Douglas got more involved being central, what that could unlock with him and Efra working together and those guys. Dejan's not really a winger, so I was a little bit hesitant to make that change right off the bat. But as I saw, again, us having so much control, that half space, if you will, on that side where Kevin was, there was a lot of opportunity. I thought if Dejan could get facing forward with his finishing ability, he would have a good look on goal. And I didn't want to take Douglas out of the middle because I thought the fluidity, the movement, some of the things that were going to unlock the defense were happening when Douglas came inside. And so I got to a point where I was talking with the staff. I'm like, let's just put Dejan on as the left winger because maybe he can get himself facing forward. It's an inside position anyways based on what we were doing. It's just not going to be natural for him when it comes to defending if we happen to have to sit in a lower block, which is something I was not in a lower block, but if they could just establish any possession. And so that was something I was trying to balance out. But putting him in, I'm so happy for him because he's a kid who works really hard. He's a hell of a finisher. We've been talking a lot over the last few weeks just about when we have a lot of possession, how he can still be a goal scorer and impact the game. And we had a lot of possession, and again, he was able to face forward, I think because he was a little bit in the half space and not necessarily as a striker. And he showed his quality when he had that look. And again, I'm really happy for the kid because he busts his butt and he cares, and that's important.
All right, there you go, Greg Vanney.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the answer to one question. Greg Vanney does not cheat you when he answers your question.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's pretty complete.
Well, and that's super interesting because it goes through all of the machinations in his head of what he was trying to do and how he was trying to affect things. So often, I think, certainly as the way I watch games is I'm reactive, right? Greg makes a change and then I react to that change and I see what's going on. Very rarely do I sit there and say, oh, well, if they just move Dejan in and put him in this half space and turn over here, with Costa now taking a shot into the middle, Stan Van Gundy, who is former NBA coach and is an NBA analyst, was on Twitter today. And I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but he was just roasting people because they were watching the NBA playoffs. And he was like, just because you don't see the adjustments that coaches make doesn't mean that they don't happen. He goes, sometimes it doesn't even matter if you make the adjustments because the team you're playing against is just too good. They're too good of a team, and it doesn't matter if you make the adjustments, even if they're the right adjustments for the situation. He goes, it doesn't matter. But also, those adjustments are happening whether you see them or not. And so hearing Greg Vanney talk about moving Costa to the center, seeing about the space that was going to open up with Alvarez also cutting into the center. So basically you had Costa and you had Alvarez who were occupying sort of these center spaces, and Costa playing more of a central attacking midfielder, a cam role in this case, which we haven't seen a bunch of him in. But again, Vanney trying to get the offensive players facing towards goal and trying to open up spaces, trying to get creativity in there. And without Victor Vasquez, again, who was dealing with a hamstring injury, so he was not available for this game. But without Victor Vasquez, who is the creator for the LA Galaxy, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He is a creative force when he is on the field. He is not on the field that much because he can't handle 90 minutes anymore, but when he is there, he creates the chances. And if you want to talk about the LA Galaxy's offense being a little more stifled right now, one of the reasons is Victor Vasquez not playing in the last 2 or 3 games and not being fully fit and 100% available for that as well, right? So that's something. But with Costa coming in and playing in the center, with Alvarez playing in the center and moving more in, trying to break that back line, trying to find passes in and out, Greg said something really, really important in this, and it's a perfect criticism of Kevin Cabral too, is that he said Kevin put himself in a lot of really good positions, but he was not ready for the ball when it came to him. He wasn't ready for the ball at the speed of which it was going to be played. And there were a couple combinations, I think, with Costa and Chicha, where Chicha passed the ball on a one-time, and if Kevin was paying attention, he's in on goal and he scores, right? And he just didn't anticipate that Chicha was going to one-time it to him, and you saw Chicharito getting frustrated. Listen, the players are getting frustrated. I know the fans are getting frustrated with Kevin Cabral. The players are getting frustrated with Kevin Cabral. And some of that frustration for me still has to do with the fact that he gets so close and doesn't finish. I think that's the biggest frustration part.
I think Kevin Cabral's season, you could boil it down to about a 4-second video clip, and that was the goal he scored in the U.S. Open Cup, where he got open.
You can't though. See, that's
no, but wait a minute.
Go
let me
ahead.
finish.
Mm-hmm.
He made a tremendous move and got open, then put a shot that he should have buried off the post. The shot came straight back to him where there's nothing he could do. It hit his foot. I don't think he moved his foot. I think the ball hit him and then it went in. And that just shows you he has the talent, the ability, the smarts, the intelligence, the moves to get open. Then when he gets open, he can't finish. And in that case, the ball just came right back to him and he got lucky and it went in. I mean, here's a guy, again, second on the team in shots on target. Doesn't have a goal or an assist this season.
See, that's the whole thing, though. You want to boil it down to just what he does offensively. And Greg Vanney speaks at volume, at length about what he does.
You think the players are upset going, Kevin Cabral, your defense, I'm really upset with you. They're frustrated with his offense. He's an attacker.
Yeah,
that's what he's paid to do.
At the same time, no, he's a winger, Kevin, which means he has defensive responsibilities. These are not black and white players. These are gray players. Kevin Cabral has defensive responsibilities as much as anybody else on the field. And when guys like, let's see, who was a winger? Oh, like Costa. Costa has no defensive responsibilities, even whenever he runs back and he tries. But the Galaxy know that, and they force that to the strong side, which is usually why Julian Araujo is back on that side, is to be able to try to cover for Costa in different ways, right? So there's certain guys that don't play defense. Kevin Cabral is not one of those guys, right? And so that's an important part of what he's bringing. Now, I'll say this. If you want to fight for Cabral and you say he doesn't deserve to start, I'm fine with that. It's Grandsir who gets his minutes, though. That's the trade-off there. And then it's up to Greg Vanney to figure out how to get Dejan into more games. The best way to get Dejan into more games is to give Chicharito more rest, because Chicharitos played, I think, almost every minute of every game he has, and he's gotten pulled out a couple times, and he got pulled out
in the U.S. Open Cup, which I don't understand at all.
And so, this is. By the way, I got called out. Well, technically, Kevin Cabral is black, so it is a black and white. Like there, I said these players are not black and white. No, technically he's black.
I think Kevin Cabral and Dejan was white. So
the black and white. They are black and white players. I stand corrected. And the whole deal. No, and this is Alexis says we did not sign Kevin Cabral as a DP to play defense. No, you signed Kevin Cabral as a winger, and a winger plays offense and defense.
Well, what are the teammates? You said the teammates are frustrated. What are they frustrated with?
On his offensive side, they were also
there.
Yeah,
thank you.
No, that's fine.
That's the point we're making.
No, that's the point you're making. My point is they were also cheering whenever he ran back and tracked back and stopped somebody on defense when nobody else was following the run, right? So again, there's levels to what he does. There's a reason Greg Vanney has him. Now, Dejan needs more minutes. Dejan flat out said, I deserve more than 5 minutes or 3 minutes, or forget exactly what the quote was. So Dejan deserves to get more minutes, 100%. Agree. So there has to be a way in order to do that. One is to play Dejan with Chicharito in a 4-4-2 more. I think you're going to find Greg will go to that when the Galaxy are losing games and they need to score. That's why Greg sort of put him in this game, right? Was the Galaxy needed to score a goal. They were comfortable on the defensive end. They didn't feel threatened on the defensive end. So they were able to give up that defense and they were able to go ahead and put that offense in play. This is something that Greg does whenever he goes maybe to 3 in the back and he pushes, Araujo up on the wing as a wing back or Raheem Edwards as a wing back and pushes those guys forward and sort of lets them go whenever they need. It's not Greg Vanney's preferred formation, not for this Galaxy team, but it's something he can go to. And so I think
I don't think that fits Dejan. I don't think he's Alan Gordon. I don't think he comes in and plays 15 minutes and changes the game. Alan Gordon was great at that. There's very few players in MLS history that did what Alan Gordon could do as a substitute off the bench. I think Dejan is a guy who needs to get into the rhythm. I think he's at minimum, 20, 25, 35-minute guy to really be effective. I don't think he comes off. He did this game. Yes, he came in very late and scored the winning goal late, but I think he needs more minutes. I don't think he's a game changer off the bench.
Yeah, I think he is a game changer off the bench, and he's going to have to be. He doesn't have a position on this team, and that's regardless of Kevin Cabral. If you want to sit Kevin Cabral on the bench, that's fine. Grandsir starts, and then Dejan still doesn't have a starting position because, as you said, Greg is more comfortable and likes Chicharito up there in that position. And people are asking about central attacking midfielders. We've said that the Galaxy should look at a central attacking midfielder for months and years to try and get somebody in that position to make this creativity a little better, and that's what Costa was sort of playing. The problem is, in the normal formation that Greg Vanney likes to play, there really is no Cam needed there, at least not to him. He gets it from other guys, right? And so if he's going to play a 4-4-2, that's a different story.
But if you say it's Grandsir or Dejan,
Cabral. No, it's not, though.
But okay, so who are your 4 midfielders then? If we have Chicharito and Dejan up top,
yeah,
who are the 4 in the midfield? We got
Grandsir,
Marky Mark,
and Revolves, right? And then you have Grandsir and probably Costa. Those are or Efrain out there.
Okay, well there's your 4. That's the 4-4-2. You got Dejan with Chicharito,
right?
Grandsir, who you want, Costa, who you want, the 2 central midfielders,
right?
So I don't. Grandsir's in there, Costa's in there, Dejan's in there. I think that they all fit. So I think Dejan comes in in that formation you just showed what they played this last game. Dejan takes Cabral's spot and everyone else stays there.
Right, but they don't play in a 4-4-2. They did this game. This boils down to the argument. They don't play in a 4-4-2. So whenever you take somebody off in this particular case, you're giving up something on defense. You heard Greg Vanney just talk about he was worried about what would happen if Dejan got put in a defensive position should Nashville establish possession. This is not hard. I don't know why everybody stretches to figure this out. I know this is backup quarterback syndrome. You see it in the NFL all the time. Well, this guy sucks. So how about you bring get the backup quarterback in there. Yeah, let's let him. Oh, and he throws 3 interceptions. Gosh, or he throws a touchdown. He's the best quarterback in the world. Let's start him. You're not seeing what's going on in training. You're not being able to. And I don't understand how anybody can sit here and say that Greg Vanney hasn't pulled all the right strings so far. He has. Right? Outside of the loss to Orlando, which was the most disappointing loss, I think, out of anything that's sort of happened here in the early moments, they've played a lot. And not only that, but they're establishing themselves as a very difficult team to beat. You are seeing a resurgence of the LA Galaxy under Greg Vanney right now. The defense is playing better. The offense is scoring goals. They're winning games. They're
scoring goals where? When have they scored goals?
Enough to be 3rd place in the Western Conference. That's
$11 million on 3 designated players, and they have 10 goals in 8 games.
Does it matter if you win games, Kevin? What's the goal here? Just to score goals? Because I think the Galaxy did that with Zlatan, right? How many goals did he score? And how many playoff games did the Galaxy play? And how many MLS Cups did they get? Oh, that's right. It's not about scoring goals. It's about winning games. It's about 3 points. You don't get more than 3 points for scoring the most goals. It doesn't matter. All right. So that's not the point here. The point here is that the Galaxy are playing well as a team. All right. And so fitting Dejan in is important. And it's mostly important because Chicha's bound to get injured this year. All right. We have not seen him have a healthy year the entire time. So that's a huge, you talked about it and I think it got buried. You said Chicha played in the Open Cup.
When they were winning, he came in when the game was, they were winning. It wasn't like he was coming in to chase the game for them.
Why? In what language and what area is putting more minutes on Chicharitos' sometimes fragile legs? And listen, he looks like he's in great shape. He was in great shape last year. Played in 21 games. right? Not 34, 21.
And Greg said he wants to get guys used to playing 3 times a week. Chicharito played for Manchester United, where they played 3 times a week all the time.
Right.
At 33, 34 now, I don't think he needs any more practice at 3 times a week. What he needs is to sit down and to rest when he doesn't have to play. Because when they get to those 3 times a week, the part of the schedule, he's not playing all 3 games. So what does he need to train for? What does he need to practice that for?
Well, by your definition, he has to, though, because he's the only guy scoring goals, right? I mean, this is the argument.
By that time, Dejan will be up at 15 or 20 goals, I think.
Yeah. By the way, we had 2 super chats in here, and actually now 3 super chats. I have to go back. Patrick started us off with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Patrick. He says finally Dejan and Cheech getting the game together, so he likes that. That was right off the bat. We had Mike Gray, who gave us a $5 super chat and says, "Let it out, Josh." And then Darren, but I like Mike embraces my therapy sessions, because I've just been watching people lose their minds for a team. It's the sixth best start.
Talking about mental health all the time. You need to sit down with Chicha.
Chicha needs to give me some mental exercises for everybody on Twitter. And then Darren says don't usually watch live, so can't super chat. So here's one for the cause. Darren gave us a $10 super chat as well. So thank you, all that, we appreciate it.
But we don't know where he comes down on the day on.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I mean, so this is the whole point is Dejan will get his minutes. And listen, the voices are only going to get louder. One, I am always 100%, and I stand by this. I'm 100%. You're allowed to vote with your voice at games. If you think Kevin Cabral is a bad player, then go ahead and boo.
But he's not a bad player. He's a very good player.
Kevin, he got booed off the field. Off the field.
I don't know about that. I'm just saying he's not a bad player. He's a good player. He's struggling a little bit. It happens to everybody. Look at Bellinger with the Dodgers. I mean, had a terrible season last year. He's lighting it up this year. He'll find his way. It's just right now, I think the better option for the Galaxy is Dejan.
Is a start Grant Sir. No, you can't. Again, it's not Cabral or Dejan. That's not. And Greg Vanney will tell you the same thing. And this is not Josh being a Greg Vanney apologist. I certainly am understanding which way he is trying to coach and how he sees things. He explains it to us all the time. He's an open book for the most part. You ask him the question, you're going to get the answer.
What if he plays as a false 9?
What does that do?
I don't know. I just heard it on.
You just heard it. I was going to say.
Throw it out.
you pretty certain you were going to be like, it's the double pivot and ends up in an empty bucket. That's what it is. We could throw out all the fun terms.
Didn't that help Ted Lasso get out of the relegation zone?
It may have. I can't remember exactly, but yes, the false 9. Chicha kind of almost plays a false 9 at times. But he is on the front line a lot, leading stuff out, so it sort of throws it away. Like a false 9 would be a guy who plays up top and sort of comes back into the midfield a lot to create more than he does as an out-and-out striker, right?
I think Landon did a lot of that.
Yeah, there was some false 9s in Landon's vocabulary as well. But no, back to Chicharito is that if you want Dejan to get more minutes, then start limiting Chicharito's minutes, because that's what needs to happen. And I'm all for, by the way, a midweek game, Dejan gets a start. I think what's happened is we're 8 minutes, or we're 8 games in this. And Dejan played something like 700 and something minutes last year. Okay. He's had 51. Well,
he came in half at the midseason. So double that. He was on pace for 1,400 minutes.
Right. And a lot of the reasons that Dejan played as well was because Chicha got injured. But I have a feeling that happens again. And so I think you're going to see that Dejan will get the starts and he'll get the minutes. I preach patience with this. Be upset at Cabral. By the way, like I said, you can vote with your voice. Let me finish that thought. You can vote with your voice and doing it. I support that. I support ways of voting with your money, voting with your voice, writing letters, that type of thing. As long as you're somewhat respectful. I don't think booing is disrespectful. I think it's showing displeasure with what's going on. And as long as you're not getting in Kevin's face as he's walking by and like, boo, right in his face, I feel that that's respectful enough and that's fine. But that being said, this is a 5-year contract, and I feel like the Galaxy are going to stick with Kevin on this, and I feel like they think he can develop. And God, if he could finish Kevin, he'd be one of the most electric players on the LA Galaxy. I
think he's a really good player. I think he's just struggling, and he needs a little help. And another thing I would say, when you mentioned, I thought that was a good point. Like, you're believing Chicharito is going to get hurt, or at least needs to sit down.
I think Costa gets hurt again. Like, I think Costa gets hurt again. I think Chicha gets hurt.
Yeah,
yes.
Costa's a human Hummel figurine. He's going to get hurt again. But if you believe Chicharito is going to miss some minutes to injury or whatever, rest, then I think you do need, that's even more of a cause to get Dejan out there, because you don't want to have a guy say, oh, you haven't played in a month. Well, now you're going to replace the league's second leading scorer. So get out there and bag some goals for us.
Yeah. Again, by the way, a $2 super chat from Christian in there says Grand Sir clearly wants it more. I agree. Grand Sir got subbed in this game. Grand Sir was not happy about it. I like it. I like how fired up he was. All right. So he was like, what? Why am I coming out? Kevin Cabral can't hit the broadside of a barn with a shotgun. And here I have to come out. And I think rightfully so. I understand why he's upset. I think that Joveljic isn't happy with the minutes. I think all of those things are true. I don't have a problem with any of this. I just don't think it's quite the civil unrest that everybody else thinks that needs to be right now. It's like people are literally typing in Discord and on Twitter, well, Vanney's going to lose his job because he's not playing Cabral. I'm like, have you been watching the games? They're winning, right? They're winning games, right? That's what's happening. They're third in the West right now, keeping pace with who's LAFC, who's on another record-setting pace, right? They're right behind them there. They just beat them. That's the same team that you're saying Greg Vanney's losing his job. I just want to check to make sure.
Well, if you like his defense so much, why don't you do the Gigassi's artist thing? Make him a right back.
You get Giassi's artist and get a backup right back for Julian Araujo. No, I think they're good with Giassi's artist going to Colorado, though. Galaxy will face off against Giassi a little more than they have in recent years, being in the Western Conference, and the Galaxy haven't played Colorado yet, so they'll get 2 games against Giassi and company. Dave Romney and Ethan Zubak came back to play against the LA Galaxy.
Forget about Ethan Zubak.
In Nashville. Ethan did not make the field. Dave Romney played all of it and ended up getting cheap shotted by Chicha at the end. Let's talk about the goal, though, because it's something we haven't talked about, and I think it's important because
who scored the goal?
Dejan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's another guy not named Chicharito. I just wanted you to make sure that you didn't.
Yeah,
Chicharito scores all the goals except for these ones.
So it wasn't Cabral that scored this week. It was Dejan.
It wasn't. Okay. No.
All right.
No. And Cabral had a chance. There was a cross that came in like the 60th something minute.
But he was backing up to play defense and missed the ball.
No, he was on offense this time. And he was in the perfect spot to do it, and he didn't get there. And I can't imagine the anger that Chicharito had after putting that cross in exactly where it was supposed to be. So, again, I see everything that everybody else sees. I just not exactly as a reactionary as some other $20 super chat. Thank you, Kyle. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Kyle.
So again, somebody said he just gave us $20. He didn't say anything.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
even better. Yeah, I know. It doesn't come with any strings attached or anything like that. It was fun. Somebody just said that Ethan Zubak played his normal position on the bench. It's so mean. So how dare people say that?
But he's recovered from the COVID.
It seems to have. I'm trying to say. Let's talk about the goal. So the big deal here is, and the goal was an interesting one, just in terms of how it was finally created. And I talked about expected goals, and the expected goals are not. There's nothing in this. Kevin Cabral led the LA Galaxy with a .26 expected goals. That was it. You have Douglas Costa, who was right behind him at 0.15. Javier had a 0.13. I mean, these are minuscule numbers. Sometimes you can have 1.4 or 1.5. There's nothing in any of these numbers that really add up to anything. So the expected goals weren't there. Even Dejan's goal is not like a high percentage shot or a high percentage take or chance on this one. So, having said that, the ball that's created is Araujo crossing the ball in. It is Sega Coulibaly, again, who didn't make Team of the Week despite being the better defender. And then he headed it, and it ran right into Derek Williams. Derek Williams turned and fed a nice little ball out to Dejan. So Williams gets the assist on it, and then Dejan gets the finish. And
that setup, you had 3 defenders set the goal up. It's
pretty
impressive.
It is, and it was also about throwing numbers forward and trying to break down that back line. It was basically finally suffocation by force, which was the Galaxy just pressing so many numbers forward that there ended up being a hole left there. And as people pointed out, Dave Romney kept Dejan on side on that as well, and then Dejan's shot across goal and into the side net. Efrain Alvarez had a shot off the post. I thought he was less than dangerous in this game for most of it. Costa had some chances, but he didn't get anything on frame really that was anything dangerous. So I thought that was interesting. The one Cabral move that probably should have resulted in a penalty kick was early in the first half whenever he was absolutely 100% tripped in the penalty box. And it was the subject of a poll reporter question as well. Why not? Because we do poll reporters, and we had this question written, although it didn't factor in the game. The Galaxy could have easily, Kevin, been winning this game 1-0 early in this game, thanks to Kevin Cabral. The referees said in their opinion that LA Galaxy's number 9, Kevin Cabral, had poked the ball from his opponent in the penalty area. Kevin, it was one of those plays where you sneak up behind somebody and you steal the ball from them, right? Like somebody's getting ready to clear the ball in the penalty box, and Cabral just comes right around him and steals the ball right off him. And then the guy who was going to kick the ball just kicks Cabral. It's a fluid play. It means that the defender didn't see Cabral coming, which means it's 100% a foul. But we've entered, and I said this, the referee's opinion to finish it out, it had poked the ball from his opponent in the penalty area immediately afterwards. There is minimal contact from the opponent, which the referee team felt was exaggerated by this attacker. So they're basically saying that Kevin Cabral exaggerated the contact. We have entered an era of VAR where referees have taken to judging the impact and force on slow motion replays. And I don't know if they've ever run, and in fact they have. They've been running down a field once and somebody just barely pinky toe just touches them whenever they're running and they fall flat on their butt. And yet they think that whenever somebody gets kicked straight across the legs that they're not supposed to fall down in some of this stuff. It boggles my mind, quite honestly, where they're sort of taking these VAR decisions. And it's not the VAR fault. This is being able to judge a situation very clearly that's happening and understand that they're not going to call. So Kevin Cabral gets kicked directly across the legs in this, and then we'll move on and sort of finish this out. Kevin Cabral gets kicked directly across the legs from behind. 100% a penalty kick. Not even a doubt. I was like, oh, that's a penalty. They'll look at that VAR and overturn it and no problems. Oh no, they're saying minimal contact, the whole deal. He gets kicked across it. So Kevin, tell me. So Kevin Cabral is supposed to stay on his feet, right? He's supposed to stay on his feet because it's minimal contact. How many fouls do referees call whenever somebody stays on their feet? I think once every 20 or 40 times they might call something.
I don't know if anyone's ever called a penalty for a guy that stayed up.
They should though, right? Because you're not allowed to dive, Kevin.
By that definition, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So whose fault is it that players fall? Is it players' fault or is it referees' fault? It's referees' fault. I'll answer that question for you. It's referees' fault. It has been their fault for a long time. They don't understand that. Start blowing the whistle when a guy is getting chopped from behind and stays on his feet. Blow that whistle. All right.
One thing about, so Cabral's from France, grew up in France, learned to play in France, went to the PSG Academy. One thing I've always heard is that American players are really bad at that very thing you're talking about when they get hacked in the box, going down to draw the foul, draw the penalty, or at least show that there was contact, demonstrate there was contact. I think that's another thing. When you stay up, the contact then looks minimal. But, American players have sort of always been taught, run through it, shake it off, rub some dirt on the owie and keep playing. And so most American players are very bad at that. I heard the only, of this generation, the only American player that was really good at it was Josie Altidore.
I mean, sure, I guess. I mean, I think American players are fine with it. I would say that, the big knock on Kevin Cabral is that he was very much that way last year, and I think referees are still sort of judging him. It's a penalty kick. I mean, it's pretty clear and obvious, and you don't need VAR to see it. The call was right there. When a guy steals a ball like that and you're running quickly, then any sort of contact really can throw you off and does throw you off a lot of times. And if you're a player and you don't go down, if I was a coach, I would bench players for not falling whenever they get contacted in a box or something like that. I'd be like, no, it's your job to sell that. If you're in that spot and somebody hits you, they're never going to call a penalty kick unless you fall down. So fall down. I'll be happy with the yellow cards whenever they kick you. Just make sure there's contact. You can anticipate contact. I'm fine with that. Everybody does it. I did it whenever I played. I was not a good player, but I could draw a foul, right? Chicharito does it all the time. He anticipates the contact. It's the slightest contact. He goes down. He gets a foul. He gets a foul called because he's Chicharito. So anyway.
Well, they're protecting him clearly, and that same thing happens in every sport. They protect Messi, they protect Gretzky in the NHL. But do you think the size of the player should be a factor as well? And by that I mean Chicharito's a big guy. Cabral is not. He's very slight. It is not as hard to knock Cabral down as it is to knock Chicharito down.
I mean, I would have a difficult time knocking any of those guys down. But yes, I agree. No, the size of the player doesn't really matter. But there is force. I mean, sometimes it's just a fair challenge. Like when there's a really big guy and he comes up against like a smaller guy and they go shoulder to shoulder for a ball and the smaller guy goes flying into the bench because he went up against the bigger guy.
Like AJ and Zlatan a couple of years ago. Remember that play?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a foul. That's not a foul, but like I understand it's force, right? For force equals mass times acceleration, right? This is physics. This is physics.
Don't try that.
The only math I can understand is physics. I want you to know that. Like otherwise, math to me makes no sense. But physics math makes a whole bunch of sense to me. Anyway, so that's where we sit with this game. I did point out 75% possession for the LA Galaxy in the second half. That's a tremendous amount.
Because you figured out how to do second half possession, which is the big takeaway there.
I didn't. Let me talk about Sean Steffen, because Sean used to write for Corner of the Galaxy way back in the day. And Sean has a unbelievably unique mind for analytics and all those sorts of things. And so I went to Sean today and I was like, hey, can you tell me what the second half possession was for the LA Galaxy? Because nobody breaks it down by half, right? And he goes, well, possession's just passes. Like, if you want to figure it out, just figure out the passes, however many passes, and just divide it. And that's how you can figure out possessions. So if you have second half passes, you can figure out what second half possession is. Whole deal. And I'm like, and in my mind, I never knew that. Nobody ever explained it to me. And I said, wait a minute. Possession to me is like when the ball is on your foot and you have it, that's time ticking away. Like if you have a chess clock, Kevin, like you would click the chess clock whenever like the Galaxy touch it. And then whenever, Nashville have it, you click the chess clock in the other way and it counts that time. And then you can divide that time and you figure out what the possession is. That's how I was thinking in my mind, how possession works. Apparently that's not just passes. So a guy who, imagine this, one team passes the ball around their entire, back line. So every 11 guys touch the ball and they do it within 10 seconds. And then one guy in the other team just gets the ball once and he dribbles around for 4 minutes, but nobody touches him. The team that had the more passes has more possession. I just want to point that out. That doesn't work. Now, obviously that's not what happens in soccer, but that's how possession is counted in a lot of this stuff. So anyway,
but remember,
yes.
He likes math and you don't. So I'm going to go with him.
100%. Sean went on to do analytics for the Houston Dynamo. And by the way, somebody should hire him because he's very, very smart with all this stuff and he can explain it to me, which is nice. But he wanted to do game flow. And this game flow analysis is really interesting as well. And I'll sort of explain it for you, those of you on the podcast, is basically that there's a bar graph, and every little bar graph that you see either sways in one direction for the Galaxy or in the other direction for Nashville. And it's every action. How do I say this? How Sean told me
was equal and opposite reaction.
That and every action that is taken is weighed on how much that could lead to a goal. Like how much of a likelihood is that to lead to a goal? And so basically, it's like, oh well, if you have these positive possessions, you're doing stuff, then your game flow, your value difference there would be higher, right? And so if you go and look in this, basically you could see every bar graph means a minute on this. So there's 90 little ticks all the way across this. And so you can see who was affecting the game more in each minute of the game. And if you look at this, Nashville has basically 23 times or 22 times where they were affecting the positive, like the likelihood of a goal more than the LA Galaxy.
Right before halftime with Nashville, that looked like a really good opportunity.
I think it was one of the breakaways that they had coming down the center of the field. And the whole thing that Sean sort of pointed out in this game flow analysis is that the Galaxy had, they only gave away 23 minutes of this game flow analysis to Nashville. So that means the Galaxy dominated. And we saw them dominate. Kevin, we saw everything in this shows that the Galaxy were dominating this game and were pressing Nashville and were doing everything they could to affect the positive outcome of this game, right? They were doing that. But if you look at the overall value of those, there's not many high chances of that. Even Joveljic barely cracks above the 0.1%. So while the Galaxy were definitely in control of this game, 100% in control, their effect towards the outcome of the game was actually pretty minimal. And that's one of the things that you sort of have to worry about just a little bit in this game. I said after this game, the LA Galaxy were basically 100% in control of this game. There was very few times when they were not in control, and yet the outcome was in doubt for 90 minutes, basically. Right?
You just made an argument for Dejan to play more. You realize that?
No,
right?
I don't. No, I didn't.
You just made an argument for more
only
offense.
In your mind. No, it's not about it. The whole idea is that like how these things effectively hit the outcome of these games. And the bottom line is that you can't tell me you sat there and were 100% sure that the LA Galaxy were going to win that game, even though they had 75% possession in the second half.
No, you knew they weren't going to lose.
I didn't know. Absolutely not. Wait, no, please don't say that. Because the Galaxy were one counterattack away from losing that game. Yeah.
But Nashville's not going to get a counterattack without having the ball. It looked to me like a game the Galaxy were going to either draw or get a goal and win. It didn't look like Nashville was really all that interested in trying to counterattack. I think Nashville looked like, hey, if we get out of here, last road game, this road trip from hell, 8 straight games on the road, we'll take a point and we'll go home. We'll be happy with that. Like Chicago didn't try to score against the Galaxy either.
Yeah, and totally true. The whole thing. I'm just saying that there was Nashville had a couple breakaways. The Galaxy snuffed them out well, but all it takes is one in that game. And I don't think that I've comfortable enough with this entire team of how they're playing in 2022 to sit there and say, oh, they won't lose this game. I would put it at a smaller percentage, like there was only a 20% chance they were going to lose that game. Everything else was probably
math.
No, I mean, I like, general math. I'm just talking about like advanced math stuff. So anyway, so that sort of put it in there. I wanted to highlight our guest co-host on occasion, Mr. Christian Miles, as well. He says, as deserved and comprehensive a 1-0 LA Galaxy a win ever witnessed, many wasted chances. Joveljic is a pure finisher. Cabral continues to struggle with end product despite being the most dangerous player on the field. 4 clean sheets is a very good thing. I think that wraps everything up, and he is still correct. Cabral has been one of the more dangerous players on the field. It just hasn't accounted for anything. Which again sort of racks up that frustration factor there as well. So I can sort of understand that. It makes some sense to me.
Look at Christian's picture there on his Twitter thing. How come he's like off center?
No, that's like
artsy, right? That's
artsy, yeah. And you actually have to turn your camera back on if you're going to turn it off. All right. So
okay.
Yeah, it's just little things.
I'm the first time anyone's ever said they want to see me.
I would just like to point out, I think after your next 200 or 300 shows, you'll get this figured out. Right? Eventually you get it.
I'm telling you, I'm waiting for this internet thing to blow over. It's just a fad.
Team of the week for the LA Galaxy is Williams. Nobody else on the bench. Derek Williams makes one of the 3 defender spots back there. Like they couldn't have fit in an extra one to put Coulibaly in there as well. He absolutely deserves to be on there. By the way, no shade at Derek Williams. Thought he played a fine game. He just wasn't the best defender on the field. And if you're going to put somebody on there, it should be Coulibaly. He got on there because
They like that 3-4-3 a lot.
They're morons to the highest order. I don't even know who votes on that stuff. A lot of it wouldn't necessarily be my choices on some of these things. I wanted to point out some of the stats here. The LA Galaxy have a chance at basically an undefeated April, heading to RSL this weekend. So with a win or a draw, they would be undefeated in April. If they win this game, Kevin, they would they would break their winning streak from last year. So last year, the longest winning streak they had was 2 games. So far this year, the longest winning streak they have is 2 games, right? So if they win at RSL, they would extend that to 3-game winning streak. It would also extend their 4-game unbeaten streak that they're on right now, which is tied for the most of last year. It would extend it to 5 if they draw or win at RSL.
No, you're talking about just MLS games, right? Because
just MLS, because I don't
with the Open Cup, in all competition, they would be at 5.
Yeah, and they would have won 3 in a row, right? Yeah. Or no, it wouldn't be because there was the Chicago game in there as well. So, but yeah, the unbeaten streak would be at 5, but we only count league games. I only count league games. It's too hard to just sort of do that other stuff. Just a reminder, by the way, it's been 7 out of the 8 games. That's not true. 6 out of the 8 games the LA Galaxy have scored first, and that has led them to a 5-1 record, 5-1-0 record whenever they score first. There's one game, the Chicago game, where they didn't score at all. So that doesn't, and they didn't score second either, and they didn't get scored on. So it was one of those that sort of gets thrown out. So of the 8 games that have been played, 7 of those games have been recorded. They've only allowed a goal first in one of them, and that was against Orlando at home, where they ended up losing that game 1-0. So that's something to sort of keep an eye on. I talked about it a little bit before. 6th best start in franchise history for the LA Galaxy. 16 points from 8 games, so averaging 2.0 points per game. That is 1 more point than last year. 2021 had 15 points through the first 8 games. And if you go back, you would have to go back to 2019 when they had 19 points through the first 8 games. Or after that, you have to go all the way back to 2022 and 2010. Excuse me, in 2010 when they had 22 points through 8 games. That was something to sort of look at there as well.
And remember, the 2019 team did not make the playoffs. Great start. Make the playoffs. I think you're going to talk, I know, in a minute about your favorite stat, which is projected goals allowed.
Yeah, I showed that a little earlier.
That's a good stat. I mean, they have only given up multiple goals once, right? The Seattle game is the only one.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I think that's right. The LA Galaxy gave up 54 goals last season, Kevin. Right now, if we project through 34 games based upon how many goals they've allowed so far, 25.5 goals right now. So that's more than cutting it in half.
And we talked about they've cut the shots on goal in half too. I mean, it's all trending in the right direction. And if you agree with me that the offense is struggling and it's in trouble a little bit, hey, if you're only giving up 1 goal a game, like multiple goals in 1 game this year, if you're going to give up 1 goal a game, even if your offense is struggling, you're probably going to get out of there with a draw, 1-1 at least, maybe 1-0 like this week. As long as the defense is playing like that, it can sort of take up some of the slack until the offense figures some of these things out.
I will say this: the LA Galaxy scored 50 goals last year in Major League Soccer. 50. That's with Chicha scoring all of his goals as well. 17 out of 20 in 21 games. The Galaxy right now, based on how many goals they're scored, are going to score 42.5. So about 8 goals, 7.5 goals underneath where they were in this. So. Again, it's something to sort of watch, but if they can cut down on the amount of goals in half and they score 43 goals, they'll be just fine. that won't work. That will not be an issue for this LA Galaxy team in terms of how they defend. So if they can keep that defensive thing going forward, the amount of goals they're scoring so far is plenty of goals to get them into the playoffs and probably a lot further into the playoffs than just one game.
When you look at how well the defense is played, and a big cause for that is the two center backs, right? Sega and Derek Williams. When Derek Williams has been out there, I know they didn't start the season there. They have had some time together, Bond and the two center backs. Do you think the communication has improved? Do you think it's something that Vanney changed the way of playing? Or do you think these guys got comfortable with one another, that Derek and Sega know where they're supposed to be with Bond?
It is the team defense. It's not just those guys. It is so much what Delgado is doing in the midfield and his positioning. It's so much what Velison is doing. It's what Cabral is doing. It's what Grant Sur is doing. It's these recovery runs. It's even Efrain Alvarez, which was a rarity, but he plays defense a little bit more now. And even what he's doing, it is defense first. And basically, Greg Vanney and he laid out laid it all out for everybody earlier this year, which was, if you don't play defense, then you're not going to play on this team. I don't care what else happens. You have to play defense on this team. And so everybody has taken that to heart. The team defense is so much better. So you're not getting into situations. I mean, there was a breakaway from Nashville, and you had Delgado tracking back at full speed. You had Cabral tracking back at full speed. Grant Sur is trying to get back in that. Revelison is chasing in there. You have 6 guys who are all trying to converge on basically 2 or 3 attackers. And they're able to cut out, and they do it smartly, and they're running routes right now. I mean, just Delgado's positioning alone cuts out so many passes through the midfield that there aren't as many sort of odd number rushes or better chances where it's coming. So it's a team defense thing. It is Coulibaly certainly getting confident. Greg Vanney talked about it. Go listen to our post-game media call that we did, and it's posted up on YouTube. You can find all of the stuff. Greg Vanney talked. Dejan Joveljic talked. Joveljic talked about getting the Lars lift. By the way, that's a thing now. Did you know that's a thing, Kevin? The Lars lift. It's become a thing. Dejan ran over to the corner and then got. I asked him about it afterwards too, and he went over to the Lars corner and put his hands up, and the guys from Lars just grabbed his hands and pulled him right up into the capo stand. One of our listeners, Daniel, says yellow for Dejan taking off his shirt, because he took off his shirt after he scored that goal, so he got a yellow card. Is it another yellow for jumping into the crowd, or does it count as the same celebration? Couple things on that, because people were arguing that. I argue that the capo stand is not part of the crowd. It's actually inside the confines of the stadium. And if the capo stand wasn't there, you would just be on concrete. You're actually not in the stands. It's a separate area that's not in the stands. So did he leave the area of play? In my mind, he didn't. So I will say that. The other thing is that likely it's the same infraction. There's a letter of the law, and then there's the interpretation of that, and you sit there and say, okay, I understand. That's fine. It's the same. It's like the same celebration.
It's like the Lambeau leap.
It is, except there's the Lars lift, which. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, don't think that Greg Vanney's reinvented himself as a coach. He was extremely successful, as we know, in Toronto. He was a national team defender and an all-MLS defender when he played for the Galaxy back in his playing days. He's always been defense first. Remember, he had a team that lost an MLS Cup final without giving up a shot on goal,
which he reminded us about.
It's clearly it still bothers him. But I mean, imagine that. And this was a team with Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore, and a lot of really, really good players. And they were a defensive-minded team. So this is totally in the way that Greg Vanney manages. This is what he's comfortable doing. And you're probably right. It took him a year to get this defense-first mindset to sort of settle in, and now we're seeing the result of that.
LA Galaxy schedule coming up. We'll wrap up the show. Galaxy will play Real Salt Lake 12:30 p.m. on April 30th, so that'll be the last day of the month there. That game on Univision and TUDN.
At altitude.
At altitude. Listen, it's a tough game. RSL's a bit of a cluster right now, so I'm not really sure what to make of sort of. They lost a USL game. In the Open Cup, they lost to a USL team. They have not. By the way, they were supposed to. They had a quote unquote. They were going to have a record crowd for an Open Cup game, and then they lost to the USL side to do that. So they're very much a hit and miss team. They always seem to play the Galaxy well, so that'll be something to sort of watch. So that'll be the last game of the month to sort of wrap it up. And like we said, chance for the LA Galaxy to be undefeated in the month of April. 5 games coming up in May as well, plus a US Open Cup game, which is in there as well. Let's give you a little update on the Open Cup. I'm hearing at least preliminarily, and I'm trying to figure out exactly if this is true 100%, but I believe it is. I saw an email go out to some Cal United Strikers FC people, but basically hearing word that the U.S. Open Cup tickets for the LA Galaxy's match against Cal United Strikers FC will go on sale this Wednesday at noon. Reminder that that's a sale through Cal United, and that stadium seats about 5,000 people. I think when the Galaxy went down there to play, they said they could expand that to about 7. So I don't know what the total count is, but it's probably between 7 and 4 is the total amount of tickets that they're going to be able to sell for this. And all those tickets right now are being sold through Cal United. I imagine the Galaxy will get some for supporters tickets in order to go down there to Cal United. But for the most part, if you're going to want to be part of this game, you're going to want to buy tickets from Cal United. I'm trying to reach out to their PR person to find out if all of that is true, but we'll try to figure that out tomorrow.
Is that their home field? I know Orange County Soccer Club plays there at Great Park.
Mm-hmm.
Cal United also plays there?
Yep.
It's a really nice stadium. I really like it a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a super nice little cool stadium. Like, again, it's a stadium size that I would love for the LA Galaxy to build out in front of Dignity Health Sports Park to sort of have LA Galaxy 2 games there, or if you have like a women's team or US Open Cups teams or that type of thing, you have like an 8,000, 9,000 person stadium that you could sort of reliably put up.
Stadium?
It's not a soccer stadium. That's what's wrong with it. I'm just trying, for the good of the game, I'm trying to figure some of this stuff out. I think that about does it. The standings for the LA Galaxy right now are pretty self-explanatory. Galaxy in 3rd place in the Western Conference behind LAFC, who have 19 points. Austin, who continue to win. They're really sort of throwing this whole Austin isn't going to be good thing out the window for me. And I watched some of their games, and I'm still not convinced they've played anybody of any sort of real merit. But that being said, it's not just a fluke. So the Galaxy get to play Austin twice next month. So that'll be something to watch there as we do that. Galaxy in 3rd place, 16 points. Dallas, 15 points. Galaxy play Dallas next month as well. Minnesota, 14 points. Galaxy play Minnesota next month. Real Salt Lake, they play at the end of this month. And then the Houston Dynamo, they play in May as well. So you're talking about a lot of teams, the LA Galaxy, who are playing all above the playoff line coming up here at the end of April and now into May. So just something to keep an eye on.
The Galaxy is in the Supporter Shield race.
They are in 4th place in the Supporter Shield, so not bad. Not horrible sort of way to go.
No, but and just more proof that the Western Conference is superior.
It's the 1st division, and Eastern Conference is the 2nd division. Except that, as was rightfully called out, Alexis says RSL got hit pretty hard, 6-0 by New York City. So it's every once in a while. Like I said, RSL is a question mark right now. I'm not really sure how to look at them.
New York City beat Real Salt Lake 6-0.
Mm-hmm. The Galaxy
beat New York City 1-0. So the Galaxy should win 7-0.
Exactly. The transitive properties. Of course.
The math. I can do math.
I'm glad. All right, I think that does it. Show coming up on Thursday. Eric will be my co-host on Thursday. We'll get you ready for the RSL game. I am out of town this weekend, but should be able to cover that RSL game. Shouldn't be a problem. He says, knowing that he's going to be in a Rocky Mountain state, so maybe I'll be blocked out by some weird way of not being able to watch the game. So maybe I'll be VPNing it like a lot of people. So I'll get to watch that game. The following week, there's a question mark about the show on Thursday and whether or not that one will happen because I'll be traveling on Wednesday. I should be back by Thursday afternoon and into the studio by Thursday night. But right now, there's a question. I'll keep you updated on that.
What do we pay you for? Come on, man.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it.
To this.
Tell me about it. Well, the worst part is I'm going to Dallas, and I told Hammer, I'm like, hey, Hammer, I'm going to Dallas. Like, I'm going to be in his net. He can take me out to dinner, right? Like, we could say hi, the whole deal. And then that dude's like, oh, I'm not going to be there. Can you believe that? I make one trip to Dallas all year, and he decided to be out of town that day.
He lives really close to the Soccer Hall of Fame. You could have gone to see that, too.
I mean, who doesn't want to go to Frisco, Texas to see the Soccer Hall of Fame? You
bet. And I know why you're taking all this time off, because Dejan's going to start, and he's going to have a bunch of goals, and you're not going to want to talk about it.
I would be highly surprised if Dejan starts. I'm going to put that out there right now for everybody. I don't want to crush everybody's hopes and dreams, but I would be highly suspect if that happens. That means that Chicha got hurt in training. That's what that meant. If Dejan's starting, Chicha got hurt. I'll watch. Greg will be like, "Oh, gotta start him, hot hand, gotta put him in." So he'll
gotta embarrass Josh.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm sure he listens to this podcast saying that. So anyway, that'll do it. Anything else, Kevin? You want to get to, or are we good?
Hat trick for Dejan this weekend.
Oh, you know what? Before we go, I forgot one of the best parts about the game.
Hat tricks. Yeah.
One of the best parts of the game on Saturday was the yucca con chicharron, which was the first time I've ever had that, and it was very good. I like it, not as much as I like pupusas, but I really love pupusas. So the after guys is still great. I don't want to say it wasn't great. It was still great. It just wasn't as good as pupusas, which I still had 2 of with some rice and beans. Absolutely outstanding. But whenever they said they had hats that they were wearing, I was like, well, where's my hat, right? And so I walked up. And they had my hat sitting there waiting for it. I attempted to pay for it, by the way, and they would not let me. But I now have my pupusas hat, which is probably my favorite hat ever. My wife says I'm not allowed to wear it out in public with her, but you know what? She doesn't go with me a lot of places, so I can wear it a lot of places.
You look like one of the guys in the truckers in the Freedom Convoy.
I doubt they would have pupusas on their hat. That doesn't really seem to fit that demo very well, right? Although very much is like, oh yeah, but I still love Mexican food. Yeah, where do you think that comes from? So obviously,
hey Vern.
So somebody said that I'm an honorary Salvi because of how much I love pupusas, and I said let's not go crazy there because I don't know that they'd want to adopt me. So
you got to use Bitcoin.
I'm not. See, that's exactly why I'm definitely not going to do that. So anyway, that's what we got. Let's get out of here. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at KBaxter11. I like how he steps on that. So at KBaxter11, so that way you can definitely get there. If you're looking for all of his writing, LATimes.com is where you can find it. Head on over there. He has a newsletter. Make sure you subscribe to that newsletter. It's great. It provides a lot of information about soccer in Southern California. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com. We got the press conference up there, the post game. You can hear from Dejan Joveljic about the Lars lift. That's a thing now. Spread it around, tell your friends. The Lars lift and the LA Galaxy's 1-0 win. Great to hear from everybody then. All right, for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching the Corner of the Galaxy from the box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.